So, welcome everyone to Denby Dale Amateur Radio Club. Really good to see everyone again, and welcome to visitors to the club. If you're not already a member, as we say every week, everyone is welcome. You do not have to be a paid up member of Denby Dale Radio Club to come along to our meetings. We started these online meetings in the last lockdown a year ago, virtually. At the end of March, beginning of April 2020. And we missed a few over the summer, but we pretty well had weekly meetings with outside speakers, with a great array of speakers that have come into the club, and we're doing our best to continue that tradition this year. So I'd like to welcome Bryan W2RBJ from New York, from East Greenbush Amateur Radio Association. Confusingly, Bryan has got on the cap of his radio club on with a completely different call sign on it. Bryan, I noticed and I read about Bryan in an article that was published in the February edition of QST, the Amateur Radio Relay League publication from the States, because Bryan had written what I thought was a very interesting article about how clubs could help welcome new members into the clubs. And I'd spotted that Bryan had written on that subject and done some work on it for his club. And I thought it would be worthwhile inviting him along here tonight to give us a talk about it. So, again, just before I hand over to Bryan, one last thing, and I spotted this in someone else's amateur radio blog last week, particularly for new members of the club. So I know our new amateurs, and we do have some who are still studying for their foundation license, let alone getting their intermediate, as Andrew has just done. One of the things that those of us that have been around in the hobby for a long time do is that we all use wonderful acronyms and lovely three-letter codes, and we assume that everybody else knows what we're talking about. And if I was a teacher in a room, I would always say to a group of people in a room running a class, if there's something you don't understand, just put your hand up and say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that word or that description. And we can put it up on the whiteboard and explain what it is. We can do the same in here. So can I say to anyone here who is new to amateur radio, or is a returner to the hobby and been out of it for a bit and come back in again and picking it up again, if there is someone said something you don't understand, or they use an acronym that everyone else knows and you don't, there is on Zoom this chat facility. So just type into the chat your question. So someone talks about what is QRZ.com, and you're scratching your head thinking, I don't know what QRZ.com is. Just type that into the chat, and I'm quite sure that one of the club members here will come in and will give you the right answer to that question. So I'm going to do that as an introduction to all our meetings where we've got new people coming along. So, Bryan, I'm going to hand over to you. I'll let you just explain, first of all, about your club and how long you've held your license, and take us into your talk. So over to you, Bryan.
Well, thank you much, Nick, and thank you, everybody. It's great to be with you from New York, upstate New York, just outside of Albany. And the call letter on the hat is actually W2 EGB, that's East Greenbush. That is the club call sign. And we just recently had these hats made up and selling them to our members. And we're certainly happy to sell them to you too, if you'd like to buy some. So I get that sales pitch out of the way early here. The East Greenbush Club has about 50 members. We actually have a member in Southport, UK, G6IVC, Martin Griffiths. We have two members who are in France as well. We have a member who travels overseas, and he's friends with these folks, and they've joined, so they're on our newsletter list and so forth. And we occasionally are able to make contact on HF to say hello. So it's a nice club, good bunch of people, as I'm sure your club enjoys as well. It's been around since we just celebrated our 20th anniversary a year or two ago, and I have now been president since last April. And took over from the longtime president who was in that post for 17 years. He's now our president emeritus. So they elected me unanimously, and apparently they have a very low bar for their officers, because here I am anyway. In addition to being the president, I also maintain our website. I do our monthly newsletter, and if you would like to visit our site, and all those newsletters are available for download, it is www.egara.club, CLUB. And we'd love to have you come in and take a look. And if you have any recommendations or you'd like to get our newsletter or whatever, please just send me a note and I'd be happy to get you on our mailing list. That being said, one of the things our club does, is probably your club does, we do testing sessions for new amateurs. In the States, it's called volunteer examiners, or VEs. The FCC handed off the testing requirements and the testing procedures to groups like ARRL, the American Radio Relay League, and a few other groups. They administer it, and then on the local level, we have volunteer examiners such as myself. And we have, I think we have 8 or 10 folks in our club who are certified VEs. 3 of us have to get together to be on a testing session for it to be valid. And of course, our initial license is the technician license. It's the same as your foundation license, pretty much, from what I can tell. Then we have general, which would be your intermediate. And then I believe you have full, and we have amateur extra, which is the license I hold. The thing that we found in our VE sessions is that we would get a good turnout, and folks would pass their test, and that would be the last we'd see of them. And getting them on the air always was, we'd be scratching our heads. They passed, but then we never seemed to hear them on the air, or they seemed perhaps not sure of what the next step is. So we talked about this, and what were the hurdles of getting on the air ourselves when we first became hams? And I said, frankly, I have to tell you, and the reason I actually became a ham, and I got into it very late. I was in broadcast radio for quite a while, and always had interest in amateur radio. But I have to be honest with you, for many years, there was a code requirement. For the entry level class, you had to do 5 words a minute, and the general class, I think you had to do 13. And for the amateur advanced or the amateur extra license, the top license, I think it was 18 or 20 words, might have even been 25 words a minute. And unfortunately, I just didn't have the time and the discipline to get the code down. I'm still working on it. So when they lifted that, I was working for a medical center at the time. They had emergency radio equipment. This was I was in Georgia at the time. And they had a very nice setup that had been given to them by the federal government here, in case, as they say, all else fails, amateur radio still works. So there would be a monthly test, and the hospitals on the net would all get together and make sure that we had communications if the regular landline cell service and regular communication channels all failed. Well, they needed someone who was licensed to do that. And all of a sudden I realized, well, you don't need to do the code anymore. I'm pretty good at the electronic side of it. So I went and got my technician and my general license in one sitting. But when I walked out, I was still kind of, now what do I do? I mean, I know we had the equipment at the hospital and so forth, but I really, it was all new to me. Wasn't really sure what the next step was. You get mic fright, I guess you could say. A lot of folks are not sure what to say or how to say it, or how to make a call or acknowledge a call. And talked to some of the guys in the club about that. And I said, we've got folks leaving here getting their first level license, and I think many of them aren't really sure what the next step is. So that's when I sat down and created what we call a new ham kit. The article that Nick mentioned was in QST. One of the guys at my club was kind enough to frame it for me. So that's kind of what it'll look like if you didn't see it in the magazine. And the actual kit is pretty simple to put together. It's in a folder, which has pockets inside to put our pieces. And I'll go over that in just a second. And so I put together really kind of a primer, I guess you would call it, welcoming number one, newly licensed amateurs into the hobby, and giving them kind of a brief overview, and then just taking them logically step through step about, now that you have your license, what do you need to get on the air? And there's a piece here that we put together, I put together with the club, runs, I think it runs about 6 pages. You've got a cover sheet on it. Look, here it is. Got lots of paper here. It's a regular 8.5 by 11. Has a cover sheet, and basically it says, information to help get you on the air. The first page of this is kind of an intro to amateur radio. Congratulates the person who's just gotten their ticket. Congratulations on getting your license, and some background about amateur radio. Nothing really too involved or intense. It's fairly brief and concisely written, but it kind of logically flows. Now that you've got your license, what are the next steps? One of them, of course, is, and you really should take advantage of this if you can, if you develop something similar. The first thing we recommend, and we do this right at the testing session, is join a club. A club is a great resource. It's a great way to not only just meet people, but to get the information you need about equipment and how to operate. And we emphasize there are no stupid questions. So don't be intimidated about speaking up and asking, should I get a handheld radio? Should I get a base station? All those are the kind of things that people quite often, those are the first steps they need to take. And so we urge them to join a club. And one of the things that we do in urging them to join a club is to join our club. So we have an application in the packet as well. That's part of the 6 stapled pieces that go here. And we say, you worked hard to get your license. And now, get on the air. And we also list in here on bullet points all of the benefits of joining the club. And they're listed down the side here. Everything from we have field day. I believe you guys have something similar. The newsletter. We have monthly meetings. We have a ham fest every year. We have club repeaters they can use. We have VE sessions where you can come and upgrade your license. We have an annual holiday party, and we have. I don't know if you call them the real experience hams in the UK, if you call them Elmers. We call them Elmers here in the US. Elmer being kind of I guess an older name, but it kind of imparts that it's somebody who has a lot of knowledge and experience. So we certainly make sure that they understand if you join the club, you're going to have access to people who are first willing to help you, and number 2, have the information that you're likely to need and would be looking for. And we've done something new also. Our club fee is not really very expensive. It's $15 US a year. And we have pizza and refreshments at our meetings when we're meeting in person. Of course, COVID has kind of put a damper on that for the past year. We've been doing our meetings online, either through Zoom, or we've been doing them over our local repeater here because most of our club members are local. We also have Echo Link on that. It's down at the moment, but we have a couple of members that one is on Long Island, not your Long Island, Rachel, but Long Island, New York. We have another fellow down in Connecticut and one who's outside of the repeater area. So they can come in by Echo Link, which is in the process of being fixed, actually. But as I said, we usually charge $15 a year. What we've been doing with people who pass their technician license, or in your case, the foundation license, we're offering them a 1-year free membership because we want to get them involved and we want them to see the benefits of being in the club. And the club members voted unanimously to do that. So new members, right when we do the testing session, first thing we do is we tell them, you know, it's a free membership. Fill this out, leave it behind with us. We capture their email address and so forth, so we can get them on the mailing list of the newsletter and our outreach and so forth. And that's worked fairly well for us. The problem we faced, as I'm sure you have as well, is the pandemic. We have not had an in-person meeting since not this past February, but a year ago, February. And we've had to move everything because of the pandemic to either online or on the repeater. We also suspended our VE sessions. So we've done one exam session during the pandemic, and we limited our exam sessions to club members who were looking to upgrade their ticket. But we now plan to get back in to do our regular testing sessions, and hopefully that will bring some new members in, as most of these testing sessions do when you offer a free year's membership. And we've had good response to that. If people live local, sometimes people will drive a couple of hours to come to a testing session because they want to get their license, and we happen to be the closest one that's going to be on, having one in the most timely manner for them. The other thing that we have in here, and I think in the UK, from what I saw, your foundation license members, or those that have passed it, seem to have some additional privileges that they don't extend here in the States to the technician class. It looks like you have more HF privileges as a foundation licensee than a technician would have here. You really have to kind of move up to the general license here to really access HF. So the techs are kind of limited initially to VHF and UHF. And so one of the things that we do in our new ham kit is to emphasize how to use a repeater and what a repeater is and how it works, the offsets, and some information about how to program them. And one of the things we also do is we give them kind of an overview of a lot of information here. Obviously, we can't get into everything, what radio, what antenna, and so forth. So we try to steer them to the club website. We also urge them to check out YouTube videos because, as you know, there's a wealth of stuff on YouTube. And the object is to get them involved, get them the information, get them excited about joining amateur radio and getting them on the air. One of the things about, getting on the air is we have a list here, an outline of how to make a call, how to respond to a call. Again, reminding them and urging them not to be intimidated. Most hams will be understanding of somebody who's new. Most are usually pretty helpful. And if you screw something up, they're not going to chew you out. They're going to help try to guide you along. And that's one of the things that we try to emphasize, that people in this hobby are willing to help, are willing to lend a hand, and don't be afraid to ask. In fact, we not only encourage it, but the guys in our club, I know, certainly, and most of the hams I've ever met, are more than willing to do something to help out new folks get on the air. And then the last part of this new ham kit that we put together talks about moving up, getting up to the next license level. In our case, it would be a general. In your case, it would be the intermediate, and explaining all the additional benefits and bands and operating modes that offers. So the idea is get them on the air and then try to get them upgraded and get them involved in the club. The other thing that we have in this kit is flyers and information that we've been able to get, most of it for free. I don't know how the Radio Society of Great Britain works, if they have any free materials or not, but we have a number of items in here that we think are going to be helpful. One is this is the American ham bands, and it shows what the different class licenses are eligible to use, and the frequencies and the mode of operation and so forth. Where you see green and red That is general is the green, red is the amateur extra. And as you can see, most of the other ones are fairly narrow. Those are the ones open to the technicians. So that's why we try to urge them to get involved and then get upgraded. This particular piece, I think we get 25 of these for $5 from the ARRL here in the States. On the back side, it has some additional information about the different territories and so forth, just to give them some information. But the real key is the band plan, as we call it. The other things that we have, a lot of people want, they get a license, like, well, now what can I do with it? And ARRL has a great little handout here. It's a flyer. This one is free, and it's called 22 Things You Can Do with Amateur Radio. And of course, it gets into things like doing public safety events and so forth. And we do some of those here. We have several running clubs in the area, and we provide them with support. So we urge our new members and certainly the people who are just getting on the air to come out and bring their HT radios. We set up a small repeater usually, and then we run through net control. And if a runner should fall or get hurt or something, we're able to call in help for them. If they want to know where people are on the race course, we provide that kind of communication. So that's one of the things that would be outlined here, those 22 things you can do in amateur radio. One piece is real basic. It is, what is amateur radio? We do include this. It does have kind of an overview for new hams to try to help them out. And this is that piece on serving your community, amateur radio. We include this as well. And again, these pieces, other than the band plan piece, we get those for free from the league, the ARRL. And the band plan piece is very low cost. So we buy 25 of these at a time for $5 and make sure they're in the packages. As I mentioned, the way we package it is a folder. I don't know, you guys have Walmart in the UK yet? Have they arrived? Big discount department store. I get these for like 27 cents US. They have the pockets to tuck everything in. And the other thing I do too is I get the ones that have the cutout for my business card, and I put that in the cutout slot here so that a new ham will have some information as to who to contact, how to contact, my phone number, my call letters, and so forth, and my email address. That basically is the guts of it. Like I said, the folders, just picked some up yesterday, 27 cents at our local discount store here. And I use just basic Avery labels. I don't know what brand they might have in the UK. And I just print them out on there, and I have a sheet of them here someplace, as you might imagine. I think there's 10 or 12 to a sheet, and you just peel them off and stick them on the front. The one thing that I would urge that you do if you put something together is to, and it'll obviously be for folks in the UK, it'll be different than it is here in the States. But the one thing that I urge is that once you get your drafts done, have several club members proof it and make sure it makes sense to them. And one of the things I would even do, and I've done, is find somebody who isn't a ham and just find out if the information and the flow and so forth makes sense to them. If you've got somebody who is really no clue about amateur radio at all, if they can understand what you've put together, that's going to be helpful for a new ham as well. As I said, these are the stickers, you peel them off, you put them on, they work great. I do these on my laser printer. If you went to an office supply place, you probably can get them done fairly inexpensively. I would say probably the total cost to put one of these kits together is maybe around $1 US dollar. It's not very expensive, but it does seem to pay pretty good dividends because we
Whoops, sorry, Brian, I accidentally muted you there. You need to unmute. You're on mute, Brian.
Well, I had nothing important to say anyway, so I'm only kidding. I'm not sure where I left off or where I cut off, but I will reiterate: get your materials proofed, anything you put together, and just make sure they make sense and they kind of flow well and they seem to answer all the basic questions. Certainly use the opportunity to get new people to join your club. Biggest problem we've had, and I'm sure you've faced the same thing, is the pandemic has really kind of thrown a monkey wrench in things. So we have not had a VE session for the general public or new guys outside of our club. I think it was a year ago, January was our last VE session. So we're starting to get ready to ramp up again. I just got my 2 COVID shots. A lot of our guys now getting vaccinated. A lot of people here in the States getting vaccinated. So that's going to ease things up a little bit. Hopefully we can once again get things underway and again start bringing people into the club, the new people who are coming on board. I know that I think there's a level of frustration out there with people who want to get their ticket and just haven't been able to find any testing sessions. So we're expecting, hopefully we'll see a nice surge in applicants coming through the door. Trying to think what else to add to it. As I say, one of the things that we always try to do is get an email address from these folks and get them on our mailing list so that we stay in touch with them. And that's worked pretty well for us. So I say we have, I think we have 55 members. Of those, since we started doing the new ham kit, probably 8 of those people are new members. We came out with the new ham kit, and it was shortly after that the pandemic kind of messed things up. So my initial experience with using it was good feedback from people who were getting it. Thankful that they had the information. I know a couple of guys in our club have said that they wish they had something like this when they were starting out. So I'll open it up to any questions you might have.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Brian. And thanks for that introduction. Interesting to hear from you of the similarities and the differences between the different licenses between the US and the UK. As you said, in the UK, our foundation license are very, very privileged actually in comparison to yours. 10 watts, I know limitation, but on virtually every single band on HF, VHF up to 70 SEMS. And, you know, that's on all modes. I think that's, you know, it gives a fantastic opportunity for people coming into the hobby. But I'm going to throw it open to questions from the floor or comments. So who wants to go first with a question to Brian about their club and about their hand kits? Yes, Terry, G3VFC.
Yes, hello, Brian. Thank you very much for that. It's interesting, very interesting indeed. Because, you know, what do you do when people have got their license? I'm also a member of the club and of our local club, and we have similar problems. They come in, they get their license, and then you don't see them anymore. Actually, you do sometimes, and they hang around, and it's wonderful when they do. And some of them, you don't understand why they don't hang around. But what I don't understand is we seem to be approaching people and helping them get a license. And nobody ever seems to mention the preparation before that bit, which says, why are you here? How did you hear about us? Have you done anything? And it's the answer to that question. Have you done anything? Have you listened? Have you built? Have you broken? Did the smoke come out? That question never comes up. So you've got no known point of enthusiasm to build on to get the license. And then if you did, when they got the license, they'd know what to do. and they know that they could ask, and they'd be more likely to hang around. What say?
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the things that we try to do when we start our testing sessions is, and we have a couple of members who are really good presenters. They do kind of address those issues. We'll have, on an average session, we'll have maybe 6 or 8 folks come in and take their test. And one of the things he kind of does is he's going over the paperwork and so forth, says, why are you interested in getting your license? What are you hoping to do with it? And how can we help you accomplish those goals? And so that kind of hooks them a little bit because, oh, well, you know, I'm interested in emergency communications. Oh, well, that's great because we do this and this and this, and we're actually, we have a reciprocal agreement to back up the local sheriff's department. We do go out on a number of things to test our emergency skills, where we provide communications assistance for various public service events. And they understand that, wow, this club kind of does some things. It kind of hopefully hooks them to getting involved in the club, but also, you know, piques their interest. And sometimes I think they sit there and they're like, I guess I was bored and I wanted something to do and I thought I'd do this, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. And we go, well, hey, you know, there's a lot of things you can do with it. And there's all kinds of new technologies with the digital and, you know, the Ham Shack hotlines and stuff. I don't know if any of you have gotten involved in the Ham Shack hotline or not yet, but
What is that, please?
it's Ham Shack hotline. They use these. In fact, I just got this one today. They use these Cisco phones. They're IP phones. They're run over internet. I have 2. The one I have, this one is backlit, has a color display, and I found it and I just put in to get the new MAC address hooked up on it. It's free, and it's all over the world. And if you go into hamshackhotline.com, they will tell you the phones that are compatible. They're basically these Cisco phones. You get this particular model. This is the SP303, SPA303. $20. You know, most of them are used phones, but they're refurbished. The ones that I got here, this one runs off a Wi-Fi extender in my home through the internet. It's got Cat 5, goes over to this Wi-Fi extender. The 525 model that I just got today has Wi-Fi built in, so I don't need a Wi-Fi extender. I can go directly to the router. What you do is once you acquire the phone, you give them the MAC address, which is, you know, usually on the sticker on the back here. You give them the MAC address, put in for a new line request, and then they will set you up with a phone number. You can bridge, which means if all of you had these handsets and had your number with Ham Shack Hotline, you can ask them to set up a bridge for your radio club. And then what you can do is basically it's a conference call where everybody, if you need to get an announcement out, like the club meeting's been postponed or something, you can send it out. And you know, it has voicemail on it. So the phone will come up and indicate there's a voicemail, or you can do a conference call with everybody.
Can I?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Can I ask? You know, that's a system. I've never heard of that, to be quite honest. It sounds like you could do that on Zello, which is something we have here. I don't know if you have it over in stateside, but it's an application that runs on any internet-enabled device. So it can be on your phone, and you know, talk groups or whatever. So the Ham Shack hotline, is that local to you? Is it worldwide? Who runs it? And what else? I wonder what it does that 2 Meters doesn't.
Well, actually, it's worldwide. It's run by a group out of Canada. I believe if you go on Ham Shack Hotline, they'll have a lot of information on the site about how it works and so forth. But it's basically limited to amateur radio operators all over the world. And so if you know, I think my number is 11856. So if you dial 11856, from the UK. It'll ring. It won't cost either of us anything. I think they have it set up regionally, and I think there is a system or a hub that is set up for Europe and I believe the UK. I just got into this probably a couple of weeks ago, but as I say, the phones are inexpensive and it works pretty well. And we've set up a bridge for our club now, and more members are getting them, where we can call and do a conference call, or we can call and send out an email blast or a voicemail blast. And it seems to work pretty well. So I mentioned it because it's something you might want to look into.
Thank you. That's excellent. It's something I've not heard of. It sounds useful, and if it's nearly free, 20 quid for a phone, you know, it could be useful. Thank you.
If it's free, it's for me, you know.
Right, thanks, Terry. Anyone else with a question or point to Bryan?
Can I ask a question, Nick, please?
Yeah, go on, Richard. Yeah.
Yeah, good evening, Bryan, and thanks for a super talk. Recently, I've met a guy who has just started studying for his foundation license. And I said to him what you said, why are you doing it? And he hasn't got a clue, not a clue. He's never heard an amateur signal. He doesn't know anything about bands, conditions. And his first question, you know, he came here to do some work and his eyes lit up, you know, when he saw the antennas and what have you. How far can you get? Well, that tells you that he hasn't got a clue about the hobby. And I think the thing that's missing, and okay, I'm a grey-haired old timer, shortwave listening. And I've told him how to get it. We have it in the UK called Hat Green. It's an SDR receiving station, and you can listen on all the bands and put filters in and what have you. And he started listening. And I said, you'll learn so much by listening, listening, and listening. And then if there's something you don't understand, Google it, which we didn't have in our day, and learn all about it so that you have an idea what the hobby is all about. But it was so disappointing that he's going to the trouble of taking an exam for what?
Well, one of the big things, of course, in education these days is what they call STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And as I say, I'm a substitute teacher, so I really enjoy the technology classes that they will throw to me once in a while. And I start telling the guys, you know, the kids, I'm like, you know, if you really want something that incorporates all of those elements of STEM, amateur radio, I mean, it's got the math, it's got the engineering, it's got the science, it's got the technology. And they're like, and someone will say, well, oh, they still do that? Isn't that like 100 years old? I go, yeah, but you would be surprised at all the new technologies, the things that are being done with Adrenos and some of the other microcomputer things. And the, you know, you're taking minuscule amounts of power and you're talking to people overseas with these data bursts that do very well at low power. And then they start to get hooked a little bit. And I can remember when I was in high school, you know, we had an amateur radio club. And one of the things that our club's been trying to do is we've been working with a lot of the Boy Scouts here in the States. We bring them in and we'll run a little session for them. And the kids kind of, they kind of get hooked on it. They like it. And then we try to get the parents involved, because if you can get the parents involved and the kids involved, it becomes like a dad son kind of a thing, even mother daughter kind of a thing. And we've had some luck with that too. So we've been trying to reach out to local scout troops and so forth to get them in and show them what it's all about. You know, the problem we face, the same problem I'm sure you guys face, is getting younger people involved in the hobby. Everybody's on their cell phone or streaming or whatever. And I always make the point, you know, when all that stuff goes down because of something, amateur radio is still there. So not only can you find it great interest, it's like the original social media when you really think about it. People talking to one another all over the world for over 100 years using this technology, long before Facebook and Twitter and everything else. And when sometimes kind of when you put it in that perspective, they have a kind of a little bit better understanding of it. So, but that's the other struggle, getting the young people involved and then keeping them involved.
Yeah, one of the other things, you know, they always say, it's too expensive. So you say, right, how much did you pay for that? $1,200. So well, you can get an, you know, HF radio for a quarter of that and get on the air.
And I saw something interesting. Is it the Essex Club over in the UK? And I want to talk to our guys about this. Apparently, they've been buying some of the inexpensive HT radios, probably the Baofangs, and they pre-program them with the repeaters, the local repeaters, and I guess provide them at cost to some of the new Foundation licensees. And I thought that was kind of interesting. For a while, what we were doing in our club is we got several donations of equipment, and we've got guys in our club that they could take a rock and make it work somehow. They're just amazing. And they restored this gear, and then we sell it at our Ham Fest. We took that money and we would buy brand new HF, VHF, or VHF, UHF dual band mobile radios. And at the end of the exam, we would give each successful applicant a ticket with a number on it. We'd do a drawing, and we would give them an ICASU 8900 or 8800 radio with the antenna and the whole 9 yards. And we were able to do that for, I think we gave away 4 of those sets over 4 testing sessions. So sometimes, you know, then the word gets out, you know, hey, these guys have a drawing for a free radio, and I've been thinking of getting my license. And so we've been using that to kind of market it too, to get people interested and get them through the door.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much for that, Bryan and Richard. Anyone else with a question or point to Bryan?
May I, Nick?
Yes, go ahead, Jeff. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Bryan. Thank you very much for this talk. Some nice ideas. I didn't know about the hamshackhotline.com. That's totally new for me. One of the things that's even before the exams, I remember when I was doing some exhibitions, and we have the public, young people or older people, coming to visit us. And they actually don't know what ham radio is all about. Most question was, is this CB radio or is this free radio? That's what we call the FM private stations we have here. And then we have to explain that that is not the case. And then if one thing which I found personally a little bit annoying is if we have a station to demonstrate, you have some guys calling, you know, 5973, 5973, and they ask themselves, what is this all about? Shouting 5973s. What is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that? So that's one point, the way we approach the public and the image we create about ham radio. The second thing, and this is maybe different in the United States because you have these big distances, but here in Belgium is the same in the UK. I think in our foundation license, the candidates have to follow 4 sessions of 3 hours courses. Actually, the foundation license in Belgium is a copy of the one in the UK. So they have to follow 4 sessions. And that is a very good opportunity to discuss with new hams, to discuss about certain things, because we have a coffee break and then we chat, you know, and after the course we chat. And then they have to, the 5th lesson, they have to do the practical exam with us. And then they have to go to the ministry, to the official regulator to do the theoretical exam. So, and then for the, we don't have an intermediate license up till now, we will introduce that, but for the full license, this is not an obligation, but we organize a course which take about 32 weeks of 3 hours, something like that. And this is, again, a very good opportunity to get to know each other, and they get different teachers, actually, so to say, because everyone has a little bit his specialty. And this is just another way to discuss and to get them give them a certain appetite for the hobby, and to give them some insight. And I'm totally agree with Terry. I think that shortwave listening is something which is very, very important as a good preparation into the hobby. And then another thing, I mean, the weekly meetings we had in radio clubs, sometimes, you know, it was a little bit intimidating because they meet old people. I am also an old man, but they see these old people sitting around the table and discussing about working, you know, Bouvet or Kiribati or whatever. And they say, what's this all about, you know? And they have 6-element Yagi and 2.5 kilowatt and things like that. So that could be very intimidating for a young person or for a person who just enters the hobby. So this is, I think, the way we should be a little bit self-criticism towards how we approach new candidates, new hams. So that's my point, more or less. Thank you, Brian.
I think it's a good point, and well taken. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, Ian.
Hi, Brian. Thanks very much. If you get a new ham through the door to your club, unexpected or otherwise, do you do anything specific?
Well, first thing we always do is we make sure we introduce them, and we have everybody in the club go around and introduce themselves and try to make the person feel at home. We ask them to tell us a little bit about them, and you know, why did you decide to get into amateur radio? What are you looking for? And it kind of opens up a discussion quite often. I'm interested in the new digital technologies. One of the guys will jump in and you know, one thing leads to another. It's like when you Google something, you start out here and you wind up way over here. And same thing, a lot of the times in these conversations when we get a new ham in. And then the thing I always do is I go up and I give them my card with my information on it and tell them, you got any questions? You know, give me a shout. You need any help? Give me a shout. And you know, we've got guys that have literally climbed trees to help new hams get antennas up. I'm a little beyond that these days, but we have one guy in the club who's got everything from, he must be a hell of a fisherman because he takes a fishing pole with a lead anchor on it, and he'll get that up over the top of a tree, and next thing he's got an antenna up. I've seen him climb trees and do it too. And so one of the things that we have done is really try to go out of our way to establish contact with that new person and then maintain the contact and ask them, you know, are you on the air now? Well, no, I'm trying to think of what radio I should get. Well, a lot of our guys have, you know, radios on the shelf that they're looking to provide for a very reasonable cost. We've had guys who said, look, I'll loan you a radio until you know, figure out exactly what it is you want to buy and you get some money together. And we've had guys loan gear to some of these new club members, and we make it pretty well known when they first get there that, hey, there's a lot of things we can do for you. We want you to be on the air. We want to help you get on the air. We have, you know, magazines, books. We have, you know, when I started out, one of the guys showed up and he says, I was looking to put a dipole up and wasn't sure what to do. He goes, don't buy one, I've got one. He gave it to me, I put it up, and that's how I got on HF once I got my general license, or the intermediate in your case. And that was much appreciated. I mean, that was my first antenna, and you know, he came over and gave me a hand getting it up, and next thing I know, I'm talking to somebody in Switzerland, and I was like astounded. I'm like, wow, this is great. You know, I think the first time some of the new hams, you know, make one of those kind of contacts, or you're helping them, or you invite them to your station, and you make some of those contacts, and they realize that, man, I'm talking to people all over the world here. And, you know, you make new friends, you make new contacts. you know, if you have any kind of affinity for that at all, I mean, all of a sudden you're kind of hooked on it. That's certainly how I felt. Everybody's a little different, but I know my first contact when I hit somebody in Switzerland, I just, man, that was a big deal to me. And I try to impart that to the new hams. That this is the kind of stuff you can do, the people you can meet, and who knows, someday you get overseas, you got someone to look up and go have a pint with, you know. So it's all good.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your ideas. It's been good food for thought.
Thank you,
Well,
Ian.
as I say, I hope I've you know, made your time worthwhile this evening.
Yeah, can we show our appreciation to Bryan tonight in the normal way for a really thought-provoking contribution? Thank you, Bryan.
Bryan.
It's not making